Now, you may think that the problem of all of a sudden being interdicted by the space police when you only have one crime stat rating is a huge annoyance. That I'm going to sit here and start ranting about, oh, come on, I only had one crime stat and there's a death squad after me. This is totally unrealistic. And the truth is, no. I think this is great and something that has been long overdue. There's been a problem for a long time when trying to have discussions about open world PvP in Star Citizen. And a lot of people have formed some negative opinions, shall we say, about PvP in Star Citizen. And a lot of it I have always felt is unwarranted because they're using kind of the exaggerated, consequence free atmosphere of the PTU as an example of why world PvP has to be removed, why there has to be a PvE server and a PvP server, so on and so forth. Things like pad ramming, but all kinds of stuff. Even the basic actions of a pirate have existed in a realm that was largely free of consequences for the longest time. And so a lot of people were kind of looking at it and saying, look at this, it's a disaster. Oh my God, this is the way the game's going to be. But I think the more perceptive out there amongst us definitely kind of looked at the situation and thought, this is not the way that it's always going to be. This is the way it is in the absence of consequences. Now, is the idea of being hunted down by mercenaries every time you quantum particularly attractive, even if you only have one crime stat rating and fighting back to defend yourself only adds more to it? Is that reasonable? Is that balanced? Well, maybe. Maybe now is the point where we can actually start to have these conversations, really have these conversations. Because now we're actually seeing a universe that is policed for once. And that is something that really has not existed up until this moment. If you had crime stat before, even if you had 5-star crime stat, you were just flying around the universe and it would just randomly generate a mission for other players saying, oh, go kill this player. He's somewhere around here. But for that person to go out, find you, and then kill you when you could just quantum away and there's no interdiction, wasn't as easy as, just, oh, by the way, and here's 5,000 credits if you imagine to pull it off, which was kind of a slap in the face as well. It wasn't really anything that was going anywhere. But now that we actually have this, now that we have the problem of being interdicted, it opens up so many doors. Recently we've been talking about hacking and, taking down crime stat. And it's something that I kind of want to go into again a little bit later, maybe on Wednesday. I'll dig into the hacking thing again because there was some really good ideas in the comments, and some stuff that kind of expanded my point of view, and I kind of wanted to factor that in. But now we kind of get to the point where all of a sudden players might have to seek out other players who might have that hacking facility or might have those means to lower their crime stat for them. This is obviously not a mechanic that is currently in place, but it's a mechanic that potentially could be put in place in the near future. And this is where we start to see the criminal economy, this sort of not a rigid government regulated economy, but more of like a free form black market bazaar, free for all. This is when we can start to see these things start to take shape. The inconvenience of being attacked like this by, the police ships is something that people may want to avoid. And if they're carrying a sensitive cargo and they don't want to have to deal with the hassle, maybe it's worth, 10,000 credits when you're hauling, potentially hundreds of thousands of credits in illegal goods to get that crime stat erased by a professional. It's this sort of stuff that opens those doors. But at the same time, for players who aren't really interested in pursuing a criminal life and would rather that a lot of this stuff was suppressed, now that means is there. Now, the police have some teeth. the sudden appearance of Crusader security cutlasses, some people might go like, oh yeah, now we got them, now they're going to learn. No, this is part and parcel with the whole gameplay idea of either the pure villain or the lovable scoundrel. This is part of that game. This has to be there in order for it to be a legitimate and immersive and fun experience. You have to have the law to dodge. And I, like, time and time again, I keep saying that, like the previous iterations of the Star Citizen universe and the law and order system, such as it was, were irrelevant. It didn't matter. It didn't add anything to your experience. Like, oh no, I ran up too much crime stat. Well, I guess I'll just go to, Korea and lower my crime stat. Or if you just get in a junky ship, you fly to Hurston, you let the police kill you, and then boom, your crime stat was erased and you just go back about your business. But now we're starting to get into the real, the real consequences, the real problems with just kind of going out there and just, causing all kinds of havoc. Now you have to think about it. Now you have to be smart about it. Maybe something happens unintended and you're like, oh shit, I got way too much crime stat. Now maybe, in the future, you might have to turn to another player. Do I trust this person? Do I not trust this person? Interesting. All of a sudden things get really, really good and it gets really immersive. Do I trust this person? If I give them 5,000, will they lower my crime stat or will they tell the cops right where I am? That's all part of kind of the space scoundrel fantasy for a lot of the people, is always having to watch your back, always not knowing who's out to get you. On the one hand, you're running from the Empire. On the other hand, you're running from Jabba the Hutt as well. So where do you go? What do you do? How do you find your way through a universe like that? And there's a lot of us who have been dying for some real teeth to come in on the other end of things, so that now it has meaning, now it has value, now it has worth, and it possibly amps up the worth of other not so legal professions in the Star Citizen universe. It opens the door for these things to have a real perceptible value that people can now appreciate, because before it was just like, who cares? I can just go erase my own crime stat. It doesn't matter. But now we're on the verge of it becoming a skill, becoming, something that you would have to seek out. And that's always, I think, a good thing. Certainly, without delving into it too much, a lot of people have noticed, there's a lot of hype going on about WoW Classic. And while that's a whole other, ball of wax to get into, the one thing that I would lift out of that experience that I think was very good for that community was the interdependency amongst players. I think in the modern version of the game, it's far too easy for one person to do everything for themselves. And I liked the idea back then of, I had to know a really good blacksmith. I had to make sure that I had a very good reputation as a lockpick, so people would come to me and get me to open up their chests for them and then tip me. That was a very good source of income, things like that. And I'm really hoping that as we move into a much more fleshed out Star Citizen universe, that there's a lot of attention paid to that, and that it's not a game that in a negative way caters to more casual players in the way that, I just want everything to be convenient. I just want to be able to do everything. I think that there should be certain things that are somewhat gated and require a certain amount of special knowledge and experience and skill and training that aren't immediately available to everybody. So you have to get players who specialize in certain things, and I think that creates a richer, much more immersive experience. And so seeing this stuff appear is just kind of one more step down that road. And so I think that it's a really good thing. If there was anything about this whole law enforcement system that I thought was a negative, was the fact that we didn't get the real Cutlass Blue to go along with this, which bit of a missed opportunity there, to be honest. But I'm really glad that this is here. Certainly it opens more doors, if you know what I mean. there's a lot of systems that need to go into place, especially for other players to kind of, remove crime stat for other players and that sort of thing. There's a lot of room for that discussion now, to see those things brought into the game. But once again, you'd think that bringing law enforcement with some real teeth into the game would be a negative for pirate players, but I think that it's a win, because once again, it's just moving down that road and opening up all kinds of extra doors now that are right there for CIG to kind of walk through and to really bring some real depth and fun into criminal gameplay. And so honestly, I think that it's a win. Now, if only they could give us the Cutlass Blue.
Thank you for watching. So if you want to keep up with the latest and greatest in Star Citizen and Squadron 42's development, please follow us on our social media channels. See you soon.